Good afternoon and welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus. This is a personal response. Not done one of these for a little while. I think I recognise the guy, Chesster5981. Very long time ago I had some discussions on my page with this chap. Fairly sure I know who it is in real life. But don't worry, your secret's safe with me, I won't give you away. So anyway, I'm glad to see you back here watching the videos, contributing. Hopefully your life's going well. So let's have a look at your questions. Now I wrote them down on a notepad file. Let me just find that. So the first one is, not all Muslims are terrorists. Some are very good people and are fighting the same issue of extremism. Which is kind of fair enough on the surface. I will give you that. On the surface this comment seems fair enough. And the reason is, not all Muslims are terrorists is a true statement. I will have no argument with that. Let's even be as generous as we can. Let's say 99.9% of Muslims are not terrorists and 0.01% of Muslims are terrorists. Right? Let's be as generous as we can and say that. Even if 0.01% of Muslims are terrorists, they are the ones who are following this book the most accurately. So even though the rest are not currently terrorists, if we study this book like I have done, we know the goal of Islam as a religion for the Muslim is to make it to the paradise. How does a Muslim get to the paradise? There's only two things you can do as a Muslim to get to the paradise. If you don't do those things, then you go to Allah's evil fire, which means you're condemned to burn and die in a horrible, torturous death. And you'll never see paradise, right? So that's the religion. The two things that a Muslim can do in order to make it to paradise, one is a minor jihad, which means killing a Christian or a Jew, murdering that Christian or a Jew, and then shouting Allahu Akbar, even if they kill themselves afterwards, which a lot of the time they do, because they're not allowed to surrender, and they're not allowed to feel fear. So what that means is, after they've murdered a Christian or a Jew to get to paradise, they've completed the jihad, they shout Allahu Akbar to say glory to Allah, Allah is the greatest of all. You know, they're saying Allah's greater than all the other gods. Once they've done that, Allah's not going to come and help them. So they know they've murdered someone, they're going to now be caught and punished. So they're scared, but they're not allowed to feel fear. So in order that they can still get to the paradise, because they're not allowed to feel fear, that will stop them getting to paradise, they kill themselves. And that's what we see. You know, the explosive belts they use, that's suicide bomber, right? That's not a meme. Suicide bomber is prescribed by Allah to the Muslim in order to get them to paradise and be a martyr, right? So that is the thing they can do. The minor jihad is the way the Muslim's going to get to paradise. If they don't do that, there's only one other option, which is a very, very less intense, easier option, which is why 99% of Muslims will take option B. What is option B? Option B is helping and supporting the 1% do their jihad. So if you're not willing to personally kill a Muslim or a Jew, you have to devote your life to covering the sins of your brothers and preaching up the religion, supporting and hiding those 1% of terrorists, so that you can say you helped them kill the Christians and Jews. Even if you didn't get your own hands covered in blood, you were instrumental in helping them. And when they die, you call them a hero. Whatever they chant, you chant. Whatever they think is good, you think is good. And the reason is because that is what being a Muslim means. Alright, so let's recap that point. Not all Muslims are terrorists, 100% correct, but if they are a good Muslim, they observe the religion, 100% of Muslims will be terrorists by the end of their life if all things are known. Because remember, if you get away with it, you're not a terrorist. Like if someone goes out and murders 100 people in cold blood, that's terrorism. But if no one ever finds out to charge them with the crime of terrorism, then technically they're not a terrorist, are they? Because terrorism is a human crime. God doesn't say you're a terrorist. Humans say you're a terrorist. So that means the 1% that are doing the outward obvious terrorism, they are the ones that Allah loves the most, because they're immediately going to go and see the paradise after they kill themselves. The 99% of other Muslims are the ones who enabled that to happen through their DAWAH, through their taqiyya, different styles of permissible lies they tell to Westerners, through covering up the sins of their brothers, through sending them into battle with encouragement and resources, and through supplying them with an alibi, right? So when the police say, were you here doing this murdery terrorist stuff, other Muslims will say, no, he was at home with me. And by the way, he's a lovely chap. He would never do that. And they contribute to the jihad in that way. So that means the 99% cannot get to paradise without being part of the 1% terrorist. That's the thing you've got to remember. So not all Muslims are terrorists. Yes, 100% true. But 100% of terrorism that happens in Islam is caused by the 99%, because they're enabling and encouraging and supporting and hiding and paying for and celebrating the 1% terrorists. So in effect, even though it's in a detailed form and you wouldn't know it from them talking to you because they'll lie to you, 100% of Muslims, if they are actual Muslims who follow this book, the Quran, and they do what Allah has told them to do, the cause of Allah is the jihad, if they're doing that and they want to get to paradise, they 100% have to contribute to the death of an innocent Jew or a Christian by the end of their life. So if they call themselves a Muslim and they want to get to paradise, because that's why they call themselves a Muslim, they want to get to paradise, and that's why they say that, they have to contribute to the deaths of innocents 100% of the time, and that is the cause of Allah, the jihad. So, not all Muslims are terrorists, bracket, yet would be accurate. Yet, because we haven't caught them. But we know through reading this, they will be 100% of them. Otherwise they're not Muslims, they go to hell. That's Allah saying that. So then we move on to the next bit. Some are very good people. Look, I agree with that as well. Some Muslims are extremely good people. They're born the same as we are. They're not born with some mental deficiency or some character flaw they cannot get rid of. The person, the individual Muslim, the unique character of that human being is not in question. But, again, we go back to Allah's doctrine. Now, what does Allah call them? You shall be my slaves. What is a slave? A slave means you do what I tell you, and it is not your responsibility to choose to do it or not do it. You will do it. Right? So if that is true, which it is, because Allah said so, all Muslims are slaves of Allah. By definition of them saying Muslim. Muslim means a slave of Allah. Right? So that means some are very good people, yes, but they are still slaves. So whether they're good people or bad people does not matter when Allah says do a jihad, kill a Christian or a Jew in cold blood, or support the ones that are doing the killing by hiding them, encouraging them, supporting them, paying for them, giving them alibis. Whether they're good people or not does not matter. They are slaves. They will do that because they want to go to the paradise. They don't want to go to the evil fire, burn forever, and they don't want to see Allah grave torturing them after they have died. They will 100% of the time do this. That's why they call themselves Muslims. Then we get to the end of the sentence. They are fighting the same issues of extremism. Now here's that I would disagree with that. They're not fighting the same issues of extremism. And the reason is because they describe in this book, actually it's better in this book, what they consider to be extremism. It's not the same thing as what you and I consider to be extremism, friend. And the only reason I know this, because I study this horribly boring, terribly written book. This is the Sharia. So in here is an English version. It's basically this book rewritten in a lawful format. You know, so this is like legal bullet points of this book. So they're both the same. And this one's called Sharia. Right? So the reason it's called Reliance of the Traveller is because by the law of Allah set forward in this book, all Muslims must have this law front and centre in their life. They're not allowed to follow British law. They're not allowed to follow French, Canadian, Australian, American, Zambian, New Zealand, no other law. They're not physically allowed in their religion to follow other countries' laws. They are not allowed to recognise other countries' politicians or laws or authorities. Otherwise they become apostates, and the punishment for apostasy in Islam is beheading, death. Which we'll get to that, because that's your second question. So, are they fighting the same issues of extremism? No, they're not. In their head, extremism is guys like me, people who want to protect their own country and law and have free speech and democracy and true equality, where you're allowed to have whatever religion you want as long as it doesn't stop other people's religions, like Islam does. So, not all Muslims are terrorists yet. Some are very good people, but they are still slaves of Allah. So they'll all end up being terrorists in the end of their life. Whether they get caught or not, God will know that. And they are not fighting the same issue of extremism as us, because we're fighting extremism that comes out of this book, you know, that defeats our laws and our equality and our freedom and our democracy. That's the extremism we are fighting, and the rest of the world as well. They are fighting against us, non-believers. The non-believers are the extreme evil they are fighting against. So it's two separate wars, and that's why they call it the Jihad. So that's the answer to your first question. Not all Muslims are terrorists is true, but they will be by the end of their life is true as well, because that is the religion. Some are very good people, yes they are, but that will not stop them killing people in the name of the Jihad, because they need to get to paradise, and that is the cause of Allah, the Jihad, again. And are they fighting the same issues of extremism? No, they're not, because they don't see extremism as a sin or crimes. They see extremism that we call extremism, the Jihad, which is a moral venture which gets them to paradise. So they are not fighting that, they are doing that. And the extremism they fight is extreme unbelief of Allah, which is you and I. So they want us dead. The only reason we don't know this is because they have the taqiyya principle of lying, they have the DAWAH principle of deceiving people, making you see things that aren't there, lying to you, and they have the principle laid out in this book, permissible lying, which means they can tell you anything they need to make up in order that you let them get on with their jihad, their extremism, their terrorism, and you don't get in the bloody way. That's permissible lying. That is Allah commanding them, obligating them to do that. So no other religion has that, only Islam has that. So that's the answer to your first question. Not all Muslims are terrorists yet. Some are very good people, but it doesn't matter because they're still going to be terrorists in the end. And they're fighting the same issues of extremism. That part is just false, right? So that's question 1. Comment 2. Islam is the fastest growing religion and Christianity has the highest rates of apostasy. Again, this is Islamic dawah. These are lies that Muslims are telling you so that you can turn up and do dawah to me. So you're a Dhimmi slave of theirs, that means. Whether you like to admit this or not. By the rules of this book, if you're a Westerner, a white person who is not by birth Muslim, you're not an Arab, if you don't bow to Allah, you know, if you're not a Muslim, which presumably based on your lifestyle you can't be, that makes you, in the eyes of them and the eyes of Allah, what's called a Dhimmi slave. What that means is you are an unwitting, willing servant of Allah who is not a Muslim. So they are winding you up like a pair of chattering teeth and putting you on the table so you can go towards Christians and Jews like me. That's what you're doing this for. And we know that because this is verbatim a quote from Muslim Dawah. Islam is the fastest growing religion, right? Let's tackle that. Is Islam the fastest growing religion? No. How do we know it's not the fastest growing religion? Well, because the statistics which they use to tell you that it's the fastest growing religion is how many Muslims are turning up here, getting passports and becoming British citizens. So they are saying people who are already Muslims abroad, when they move here, they're counting them as new Muslims. But that's not true, is it? Because they were already Muslims in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in wherever they were already Muslims. So moving them from Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, all those places to London doesn't make them a new Muslim. There is no growth. Islam did not grow by them being moved from A to B, did it? But that's the lie they tell. They say Islam's the fastest growing religion because in London there are now 2.5 million Muslims or something like that there weren't 10 years ago. But they don't tell you there's 2.5 less Muslims over in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, all those places because they came here. So they are propagandizing you to make you think in your head Islam's the fastest growing religion when it hasn't grown at all. All they've done is taken some Muslims from here and put them over here and then lied to you about it. So no, Islam is not the fastest growing religion. It's actually barely growing at all. The only reason it is growing at all is because they have 7 wives each and they're constantly mass producing babies and then brainwashing these poor babies with this nonsense so that they can say our religion is not dying when it is. So that's the first part of your question. Islam is the fastest growing religion. Totally false. We know that from their own statistics. If we dig in a little deeper and we look at those statistics, so they're lying to you when they say that so that they can fake it till you make it, which is again what Allah commands for them. Then we get to the last bit of your question. Christianity has the highest rates of apostasy. False. Christianity has barely any apostasy, but you know what we do have? We have the ability to leave without having a death penalty applied to us. Right, so think about how that works in interactions with the Muslim culture and the Christian culture. Say we have a Muslim here and a Christian here and they both leave their religions. If you ask the Muslim, did you leave your religion? They're going to say, no, I didn't. Because if they admit they have left the religion, off your head you're dead. Apostasy law is applied and they will be beheaded and their family will be persecuted for having contributed to the apostasy law. That's how it works. How do we know that? 2015, they wrote it in their reformed Sharia. That's one of the parts that will never change. So, the apostasy rate in Islam is a complete lie, and the reason it's a complete lie is because they will physically cut off your head if you admit to having left the religion, and that means nobody does. But it doesn't mean nobody actually leaves the religion. It just means you're not at free will to admit it, so you are still a slave of Allah. And that's how they do that's the pass mark of being a Muslim, is you are a slave of Allah. Right? So that's why Muslims can say they don't have a very high apostasy rate, because they will kill you if you are an apostate. Therefore, you can still be a slave of Allah. So even if you say, I don't want to worship Allah anymore, and they cut your head off, you're still going to die as a Muslim because you're a slave. So that's why they have 0% apostasy. It's not real. It's a DAWAH, taqiyya lie that they tell you to keep you in submission as a DAWAH Dhimmi slave. So that's part one. Part two. And Christianity has the highest rate of apostasy. Christians, if they leave, guess what we do? Nothing. You're quite welcome to leave, because Christianity has no compulsion and no death sentence, no apostasy punishments at all. So it's a voluntary choice to become a Christian. Your parents aren't going to brainwash you into it. No one's going to indoctrinate you with a bunch of nonsense lies. No one is going to set you on a straight path and then punish you in the grave for not having done it like Islam does. Christianity is something which you bear as a sacrifice of yourself. It's a thing that you wear as a weight that you choose to do for other people to live and have better lives. You're sacrificing yourself to your community by choosing to be a Christian. So it's a much more difficult job than being a Muslim. And there's far less reasons a selfish person would choose that. So that means sometimes people do leave. But guess what happens when they leave? We bless them. We say, fine, off you go. We'll bless you. We'll keep praying for you. Hopefully your life goes well. And we will let you say that you're leaving. And if anyone asks you, please tell the truth. If anyone asks us, did you leave or you are no longer a Christian, we'll tell the truth. So that means the figures for apostasy in Islam are completely falsified, much like the entire religion and the rest of their doctrine. Whereas in Christianity, it's 100% accurate, and the only people embellishing it are Muslims to try and keep you in servitude, a submission as a dhimmi slave of Allah. So, let's go through it in summary from the top. Christianity has the highest rates of apostasy. No, it doesn't. But we admit to our apostasy rate, so we have a higher apostasy rate on paper than Muslims who falsify their apostasy rate as 0 and totally lie about every single one. Islam is the fastest growing religion. Also a lie. They are duplicating the numbers by saying we've moved 1 million people from Egypt to London, so that means London has the fastest growing Muslim community. But it doesn't mean Islam's the fastest growing religion, because they were already Muslims over there and now they've moved here, they're still Muslims. So there's 0% growth there. But again, we see DAWAH taqiyya being applied to keep you in servitude as a dhimmi slave of Allah, and they cover your eyes with lies. Not all Muslims are terrorists, no, but they will be. And it doesn't matter that they're good people, because we know they are slaves of Allah, and if they want to get to the paradise, they must participate in jihad and murder innocents. And that means if we consider all of that, they are not fighting the same issues of extremism as we are. They are contributing to the extremism, lying about it, because if they were honest, they would have to admit what we call extremism, they call the religion of Islam. And if they don't do it, off with your head, you're dead. If you don't want to do it, off with your head, you're dead. If you leave in protest, off with your head, you're dead. Islam leads to death, no matter how you look at it. And that's the reason they lie about it, and that's the reason they murder people and become terrorists, and that's the reason why Islam is the fastest growing extremist terrorist cult. And it's the only one that I say this country needs to get rid of. So that's the end of this video. Please hit me up in the comments if you need any more details. I could do this all day long. I've studied extensively, probably know it better than most Muslims, so please roll up. I'll be quite happy to share the knowledge and the wealth of wisdom I have with you. That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed that and you learned something. God bless you all, and I'll see you lovely people and you, Chester, in the next one. Bye now.